Hey guys, thanks for checking out the My Career Path podcast. So today is going to be a little bit different of an episode. Instead of a standard interview, a book review, or just kind of a research topic that I've been doing, I wanted to do a compilation episode of the funniest stories that I've kind of gathered over the last year, just in interviewing people, asking them some of the funniest work stories that they have. So hope you guys take the time to laugh, and I hope you guys go check out the full interviews down below. So here comes the first story. This is from the Ben Davidson interview, who is the founder of Anthropov. He was working at a call center and a whole bunch of marshmallows were starting to be delivered. Trying to instill a culture of fun, marshmallow chaos ensued.
One day I was working away and I noticed that the call center director and his assistant started carting in pallets full of marshmallows and setting them around the call center. And one of the things that our call center director was trying to work on was having a culture of fun. And so he gets up on a desk, tears open a bag of marshmallows, and starts throwing them at different people and taunting them to join in. So we go and launch a full-on marshmallow fight, and there's carpets that are all ruined and window trimmings that are destroyed. And one of the marshmallows actually hits the phone of another agent while he's making a big sale. And so he gets up and punches the guy next to him that threw the marshmallow. It was a total fiasco, but it wasn't my fault, and I had a great time. So it was very memorable. You never know what you're going to run into at work.
Next one comes from Dallas Klinger, a hospital CEO here in Idaho, telling how knowing a little bit of Spanish can sometimes catch people off guard.
I can tell you a story. It wasn't terribly funny, but I did work at our local potato processing plant for a while, and I told your dad this, and he said, "Oh, tell him that. He'll like that story." I'd just come home off my mission, so I speak fluent Spanish, even still. I accompanied a pretty good-looking girl up to the break room for lunch, and there was a table of Hispanic people that were all sitting together, and men, and one of the guys said something in Spanish that was very derogatory and pretty colorful about the girl that I walked in with. And I walked up to the table and I said, in Spanish, I said, you need to be really careful because some of us white folks speak Spanish. And he lost face with the group that he was sitting with. They all bust up laughing, and he didn't think it was funny.
I'm sure.
And the word was, I got back to work for the rest of my shift, and the word came back to me that he was gonna look for me out in the parking lot afterwards and do me some damage. Yeah. So I reported it to my supervisor, who reported it to the plant manager, and they escorted him off with police escort.
Oh, all right.
So I didn't have any problems, but could have.
That was about to turn into something. All right. This next one comes from Julie Acosta's episode about how to be coachable. She just talks about the importance of knowing how to laugh at yourself, knowing how to not take yourself too seriously.
I have a high sense of humor, and I find that laughter and sense of humor in any situation helps you a lot. So even when things are sometimes going wrong or just not the way, you always have a plan B. And the plan B is because sometimes, the technology gods are not with you or whatever might come across, you have to have that plan B. And be self-deprecating, you're not doing heart surgery here. You're not. So you're not putting anybody on the moon. So, chill,
Take a breather.
Take a breather. This is not rocket science. This is not, so take a breather. And, what you're doing is not the most important thing in the world. We're not, we're not ending hunger, world hunger or anything like that. So just chill and take a step back. And then you say, well, that didn't work. Let's do this.
That's awesome. Here's one of my favorite stories from Bart Brown, banking VP, just sharing about how sometimes on Zoom meetings, things can get a little out of hand if you're not paying attention.
Oh, there's lots of funny stories. I'm not sure I could pick out any one, but I was thinking the other day, not the bank I work at now, but the bank that I worked at this before I came here. We used to have these national sales calls, and we were on a call one day, and they were training us on a new computer program, and we were all in our own separate offices across Idaho. And I worked with this one gal. She was my underwriter, and she worked in a different office, and she was famous for never paying attention on any of these calls. And we had instant messaging at the time. They were talking about all these acronyms for this program. My supervisor instant messaged her and said, "Hey, I didn't catch that. Can you ask him about C3PO?" And without a pause at all, she pipes up, "Now, I wasn't paying very good attention. Can you go back to when you were talking about C3PO?" And this is a national call.
Yeah.
And the moderator was like, "What?" And then you could hear people throughout the nation start to snicker on this call.
C3PO. That's awesome.
That was hilarious.
Oh, I love that. Well, and that's something that, just as a small aside, like I'll be sitting in some meetings with like our management team, and they'll just throw out acronyms, and I'm like, I swear that's not a real thing. Like I have no idea.
But you don't know.
Yeah, and it's like, and so I'll pipe up and ask every once in a while. I'm like, I don't know what that is, and someone will look at me like, you don't know what that is? I'm like, no, I don't have all 5 million acronyms memorized.
I have lots of funny stories, but
that's awesome. I'm going to have to use that.
Something funny happens every day.
Next is the episode with Dara Jacob, an architect, talking about how maybe she worked a little too hard in school and ended up waking up in the wrong place.
Thing that comes to mind, I was in grad school. This is where I really questioned what I was doing with my life. So we call them all-nighters, and this is something that if you ever go to architecture school, you'll become familiar with. It's when you're working on a project and you have a critique the next day where you've got your professors and your colleagues and your peers, and they all look at your project together and they pick it apart and talk about how great or how not great it is.
Yeah.
And it can be a stressful situation. So
I'm sure.
Of course, you want to make your project great and you want to work on it till the last minute. So you stay up all night to do that. So it was one of those situations. And so I stayed up all night in the studio and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get a couple hours of shut eye, but I'm not gonna go home. I'm gonna go sleep where I know there's a couch and it's in the bathroom. So we had a bathroom that had this kind of entry area with a couch for some reason. And I just knew that was there. So I decided I'd take my jacket and put it over me and sleep there. And so I got in the bathroom and started sleeping about 4 a.m. and was awakened about maybe 7 as the people who were going to their 8 o'clock classes were getting to the building. And I just woke up from just thinking, oh man, what am I doing with my life?
I'm sleeping in bathrooms.
But I had a good crit the next day, so it kind of...
Hey, it paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here comes another one from Lane Roberts, a sales manager from Dome Technologies, just talking about how in the middle of the night had to get up to use the restroom and ended up using the wrong door.
Yeah, I was in China and we were traveling quite a bit, staying different hotels, and so one night I went to bed about 10:30 and I was so tired. And like I say, we were staying in different towns, different hotels, and I got up to go to the bathroom, and of course I was in my underwear, and when I went through the bathroom door, I noticed that it shut behind me, and I go, bathroom doors don't do that, but your hotel door does. And the next thing I know, I'm just standing in the hallway in this hotel, in my underwear, and and I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I go, I'm getting desperate, and I have choices. Use the stairwell or go downstairs in my underwear, and get another key. And I swore I looked all over that floor for a hotel phone, and I did find one, and so I called up, and they brought up a key, and I'm sitting there in my at my door, kind of curled up in a ball,
just waiting for someone to come and let you back into your room.
This little Chinese gal, she was so embarrassed, but she's probably more embarrassed than I was.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not the craziest thing she's ever seen, though, but
No,
it might be up there.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's the episode with Jason Kirschner, learning and development expert who eventually left to work on a startup with his wife, just sharing on how, on some of the earlier jobs, maybe he got a little bit too comfortable at work.
Slightly embarrassing, but it's probably the biggest learning moment I could ever have. And the first job I was talking about that I worked right in Center City, Philadelphia, was a very corporate environment, suit and tie every day.
Mm-hmm.
And what's very common in a lot of those places, those offices, is there's TVs everywhere, right? So every section of the office has a TV. They're playing Fox Business, CNBC, whatever, any sort of, business news channel that's out there is usually on these TVs running through all day. But being in Philadelphia, a huge sports town, one of the days was the Philadelphia Phillies afternoon special.
Yeah.
So this must have been like my third week or something on the job. I'm sitting there, I don't know if I'm not really taking it seriously or whatever, but I just got sucked into the Phillies game, and I put my feet up on the desk. I leaned back in my chair. I'm sort of just like admiring, watching the Phillies at 1:00 in the afternoon on a Thursday or whatever it is. And I'll never forget, my boss pulled me into a room that he was told by one of his higher ups that who the heck am I to be, sitting like that, and this new junior level person. And I got a big chewing for that. And I'll never forget that it's so important to just sometimes act professional, even if you might not really be doing anything at your desk, but at least act like you are. Don't just sort of sit back and watch the TV.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'll never forget that.
Kicking the feet up,
run out there.
Yeah. Waiting for someone to bring you a drink so you can keep watching.
Right. Like I'm a VP or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just a junior level recruiter. Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
Is everything, but in that case, perception was definitely reality.
That's right.
I was not doing my job.
Yeah, exactly. They saw exactly where you were focused.
Yeah.
Here's the episode with Bruce Jones, an insurance agent. You never know what to expect when you're meeting with a client at their house.
We get some weird people sometimes. One time we talked to someone, went to their house or something, and they had a full-size trampoline in the house. What are you doing? And other times we see weird cars that are like, why did you take this truck and this van? What are you doing there? And, you just got to say, okay, if that is what works for you, great.
Yeah.
And I'm just lucky that I get to have a job where I go to people's houses sometimes and see things that are just funny. And I go, and I'm not always going to their houses, so I get to do so much. And I don't just have to just sit at a desk on a computer all day. But
being able to go out and meet people.
And sometimes people say the funniest things. Sometimes somebody once said, I'm just so frustrated about this. I'm going to go out in the snow and get snow on my boots, and I'm going to jump on your desk.
Oh,
and you should do that. If you were that frustrated with life, if that'll make you feel better, you go for it. Yeah, it's just so funny.
That's awesome.
Someone
had a full-size trampoline just like in their living room.
Trampoline in their living room. And it wasn't even like a monster high ceiling. It was just a regular ceiling. And we're like, that wasn't even one of my potential clients. Another agent called me and said, hey, you've got to go on this appointment with me. I met him once and I saw this. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
That's so funny. Did you guys have the meeting on there? Like you guys all just climbed on the trampoline?
We did not. We met at the kitchen table. Yeah, that's good. Awesome. And we didn't even ask him about it.
Oh, wow. That takes a level of self-control.
The guy was just weird. And so we're like, we're just gonna say, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was terrible because this guy, the buddy of mine, said, "Hey, you got to come with me to this appointment." We go to the appointment. When we get done, and this guy had a single car driveway, and then we get to go to leave, and my buddy's car won't start. So we're stuck blocking this guy in his house. And I'm like, ugh. It was a pain. We had to call a tow truck to pull his car out of there. The pain in the butt. But
oh my goodness,
that was pretty funny.
Here's one of the more recent stories from Dwayne Sparks, a sales executive, just talking about how important it is to know who you're talking to and remember what their name actually is.
Look, I got one. I really feel like even today, this might be a good story. It's not the greatest story, but it's a good story. It's a story from today, and it could give someone looking into sales some hope. But I get on a call today. It was a voicemail, and it's for a C-level executive, and I'm on there, and I'm saying, "Hey, Kim, thanks, Kim, and Kim, let me tell you the reason I'm calling you, Kim, because Kim, what I need, and I'm done, and I'm all excited, and I look back on my little data on my screen here, and the person's name was Ken. So, what could I do? All I could do is on an email follow up. I sent an email and said, listen, and I put in the subject, hi, Ken, not Kim. So sorry. That's what could I do? So sorry in capital letters, right? And I said, I apologize. I'm sorry. I messed up.
Awesome.
That's all I can do. But I just did that today. And it happens. And I get off the call, and first I'm like, I'm horrified. And then I start laughing because what can you do? I made a mistake, and it happens. So that's gonna happen.
Right.
And you just gotta be able to, move on, shake it off, and move on to the next call. That's it. That's what we do. I'm telling you, I've had so many of those, though. I've had a ton of those. I can tell you. You know what? I've had so many of those scenarios in my career. I say to people that I'm here to give you hope. I'm just here to give everybody else hope. If I can make a nice living off of this, and come on.
To wrap it up, I'm going to end with one of my favorite episodes when I was able to interview my dad, Doug Bullock, HR director at Utah State University, just talking about how people are interesting and you never know what they're going to do.
I think a couple that come to mind that I think I can share that won't reveal where or which job or whatever that we're happening. Again, one of the things we deal with sometimes is workers' compensation and performance management and attendance issues. We had a particular individual who was missing a lot of work, leaving early, saying that they had really severe back problems and back pain. And yet it was just the pattern of when they were gone and when they needed to be gone was odd. It just didn't seem to, it seemed to have a pattern, but we really couldn't identify it. And it was pretty consistent about the time of day that it was happening. And on one day, I happened to need to leave early to go to one of my son's basketball games at middle school. And when I got there and got in the gym, I noticed that this employee was there in a referee uniform. And he was reffing the game. And he was running up and down the court and making calls and appeared to be in absolutely no pain whatsoever. And so I had a little digital camera back then that I took to take pictures of my son playing basketball. But I found myself videoing this referee running up and down the court so that I could sort of gather evidence to go back and talk with him and his supervisor about his alleged medical condition and his need for all of this time off from work. And what we realized was the days that he was taking off early were days that he was reffing games. It matched up with the high school
basketball games.
Or the middle school. I think he was in middle school basketball schedule. And so he was gone. And there weren't a lot of people in the stands that day. And about, I don't know if it was before the half or after, but he happened to see me in the stands. And you could just see the blood drain out of his face. He hadn't seen me recording him. But it was interesting because right after that, he went over to his bag, his gym bag that he had on one of the timeouts, and pulled out a bottle of pills and turned towards me and made sure that I could see that he was opening a bottle of pills and taking whatever it was to, I'm sure, take care of the
You
excruciating
just couldn't
pain
see the
that he was
back
in
brace
at that
underneath
time.
his ref out of it. Yeah, you couldn't see it underneath his
Yeah.
shirt.
So it was, but the really bad thing is when I got home that night, my son knew that I had been there and I'd been recording, and he thought I was recording him. And so when he was watching the videos, he's like, "Dad, what are you doing? There's no pictures of me. There's no video of me. You're videoing this guy in a black and white striped shirt walking up and down the court," because I was so focused on capturing this employee who was basically being fraudulent about things. And so that was definitely a funny one. And one other one that sort of comes to mind is, again, I never say I've seen it all. We had an employee at one of my jobs that basically he was a little bit tech savvy, and he decided that because the company had a lot of internet power, that he would siphon that off. And he basically installed equipment to be able to broadcast internet bandwidth to his home. And we believe he was chunking that up and selling it to customers. We found out about it because one of our facilities guys was up on the roof, and he's like, "Hey, what is this cabling and this dish thingy that's up here? That I don't recognize this. What does it do?" And like, it's not ours. And so they went down and shut it off. They traced it back and pulled the plug. And 30 minutes later, when they went back, it was plugged back in. And what we think happened is that his internet customers started calling him and complaining that their internet was down. And he went up and done, so he plugged it back in. So we figured out who it was, and we pulled him in and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I checked the employee handbook, and it doesn't say I can't do this, so it's not a violation of policy." And I'm just like, so people's thought processes,
letter of the law versus spirit of the
very
law.
bizarre.
It's not written. It's
fair
game.
Yeah, if you don't explicitly say I can't, then I can. And so I'm always amazed at people's thought processes around things, and people rationalize other things. So those are two stories, I guess, that jump to mind that aren't too incriminating and hopefully not too traceable, but lots of different things over the years.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this compilation. I hope you guys were able to laugh along with me, as well as most of the guests that I had on here. It's just funny to hear other people's stories and realize that we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. If you like this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review. If you have funny work stories, send them my way. I'd love to gather them up and maybe do some more compilations from your guys' stories. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.